I've learned to keep things simple. The reality is every time I say yes to say something, I'm learning I'm saying no to literally everything else. It's like we're always planting seeds. What I'm doing today, I don't know when I'm going to get paid for it. When you take on a new client, are you working them properly from the start? My goal is mastery. You don't get paid for contacts.
All right, guys, welcome to another edition of the Phone Warriors podcast. We have a very special guest today, Mr. Zach Behr from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Zach, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks, guys. Hello, everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, so why don't you tell them a little bit about yourself and kind of where you work and how long you've been in the business and everything? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll keep it short. Again, Zach Behr, Keller Williams down here in the Philadelphia area, 18 years in the business. Uh,
Wow.
Back then, I weighed a little bit less, had a lot more hair. Um, yeah, more than half my life at this point has been in the real estate business. So that's pretty cool. I live just outside the city, so I work pretty much 5 counties in the surrounding area. So a lot of people think Philadelphia, but if you just think Pennsylvania, think me, right? Pennsylvania is a big state, but there's a lot of little cities and towns all across the area that we cover.
Yeah.
So
Do you cover the main line also?
cover the main line as part of that
Yeah.
whole process. Yes, sir.
Awesome, man. So tell us a little bit about like where, I mean, I've known you for, many years now, and I've seen you, you've been on stages and all these different things talking about certain things. What would you say makes Zach Zach? At your production level, being in the business 18 years, what are some things that you're doing activity-wise that is attributing to your success?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, I've learned to keep things simple,
Wow.
right? And when you talk about activities, I try to. So when I first got in the business, or let's just say, I think we know each other from the Mike Ferry organization. When I first started, I tried to get involved in so many different groups, right? I was just trying to absorb like a sponge, everything, right? I wanted to be on all the mastermind groups, the mornings with Mikes, the think bigs. I wanted to be involved in so much activity and so much stuff. But what I've learned as I get more and more productive is that I have to limit my exposure, not exposure to good things, but what I'm saying yes to.
Mm,
And so in the way of activity is what I've learned is to say no more often. So that's
wow.
going to be a funny thing because you asked me about activity, but the reality is every time I say yes to say something, I'm learning I'm saying no to literally everything else.
Mm,
And so it's going to be pretty, maybe it's boring to everybody on the call, but I keep it so simple. It's like I start my day, I do a role play every day at 7:30.
mm,
I get on the phones at 8. I prospect from 8 to 11:30. Have
mm.
a quick 10 to 15-minute check-in with my 3 administrative staffs at 11, just ongoing things, where we are, give them direction if needed, just a daily check-in with them. Then I will do my lead follow-up, take a quick, maybe 45 to an hour minute lunch, get back in, do lead follow-up again. And then if I don't have any appointments, I'm just getting back on the phones.
Mm.
Now that schedule is obviously a lot different than when I first started. So for those who are listening, if you're newer, there was a lot more involvement. Probably I was doing a lot more practice in the afternoons. I was studying, reading, whatever I could to immerse myself in the business. But right now, I, my core activities are pretty like 99% of what I do is what can I do to get a listing today? If it doesn't involve me either selling a listing or taking a listing, I'm probably not involved.
Now, do you have a team built out for you right now that's handling all the admin, all the other showing activities for the buyer calls that you get? What is that? What does your structure look like right now?
Yeah, so we have 3 full-time administrative staff. I've got 1 operations manager, or I guess he goes by director of operations, 1 listing coordinator, and a closing coordinator. And then I've got 2 agents that work with us. We had a bigger team last year, and going back to a question you asked just a couple of minutes ago about like, hey, what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in terms of activity, I've gotten less. For a long time, people say leverage yourself out, right? Because it's like, well, I do $15 an hour work if I can get on the phone and make 3, 4, $500 an hour. But it took me a little while to adopt to that. So I'd say I was probably the jack of all trades up until the point of 35 to 40 transactions. When I decided I didn't go part-time, I went full-time. And then it was just a progressive thing from there. So we went from one admin that did everything for me, negotiate, listing coordination, transaction coordination, and then probably added the second one somewhere in like the 75 deal range. And now I've got three, which is probably more than I need, but I'd like to hire ahead of need. I don't want to keep going in and banging my head up on the ceiling because I don't have enough help. So that's kind of where we are with the three administrative staff.
And are they in-house or VAs?
All in-house.
In-house.
Yep.
Nice. All right. So you're pretty well suited for yourself to be highly productive. I mean, that having that leverage just for yourself, I know that's $1 million formula. As I've told other agents, other people, I shared it on another podcast recently. But why do you still prospect? Why do you still do it in the way that you're doing it? Why not do a YouTube? Go do something else. Do social media. There's so many other ways. AI now is like all big, and it's like the big thing. You know what makes you, because we're around the same age, which is this is something else too that I want the listeners and the viewers to understand. We're all in our 30s from what I understand. Okay.
Yep.
And I want to, what keeps you on the phone itself as opposed to just doing something else that might be a little bit easier?
Probably because I'm not good enough at other things. You know, when I first started selling full time, I practiced 2 to 3 hours a day. I practiced my scripts, my skills. I was writing probably more towards the 3 hours a day versus the 2, because I kept thinking, gosh, if I just practice enough, I'm going to get so good that there's nobody in my marketplace that can compete, right? So probably why I don't get involved in anything else, I'm probably just not very good at other things. But beyond that, I think again, it goes back to that exchange of time. It's like, why spend my time doing $15 an hour work if I can prospect and make $1,000 an hour? But you got to look at it both on a short-term and a long-term basis. I had a conversation a few years ago with our mutual friend, Lee Marcus. And he said, I'm always looking at the short term and the long term. So what do you mean? He said, well, obviously we need to prospect today in order to get paid, right? Get commission checks. But also you've got to look at it from a long-term basis. Everybody that I prospect for today is somebody that if I do a transaction, when I do a transaction with them, I'm adding both spouses to my database. And since it's a listing, I'm adopting the buyers on the other side of the transaction. So every time that I prospect and I close a deal, I'm usually adding anywhere from 3 to 4 additional people into my database, which if I wasn't prospecting, I don't know how I would ever be able to accomplish that long-term goal.
That's amazing. That's very, that's a smart way to look at it, because most people want instant gratification, right?
Yeah.
Want them right now, but they don't realize the activities we're doing today for the first 90 days, we're going to see, in the next 6 months, respectively, right?
Well, you never know. It's like we're always planting seeds, and we never know. When I'm prospecting, I'm planting seeds. Now, obviously, we're always looking for the immediate business. There's never, when I'm prospecting, do I think, oh, I got to build my long term. I'm always thinking, okay, who can I get to do something now? And that's priority one. If not, who can I plant a seed with that's going to do something down the road? Now, you guys have prospected. You probably experienced this. Like, I had somebody call me 6 months ago, and he said, Zach, this is Mark. I'm not sure if you would remember me, but we spoke 9 years ago.
Wow.
And I promised you that when I was ready to sell my house, I was going to call you.
Wow.
So and we listed and we sold the property, and it's probably worth twice the amount this year than it was when I called him 9 years ago because of the market, which is amazing. But we just never know when we're planting these seeds when they're going to sprout, I guess is the word.
Yeah.
And you never know. It's like what I'm doing today, I don't know when I'm going to get paid for it. It could be 90 days. It could be 180 days. It could be 10 years.
Wow.
But that never stops paying off as long as you're working the client from the start to the finish. So if we have a good plan when we acquire the client on the acquisition. So what's your acquisition plan, right? This is something we worked on with Tony Smith back when I started working with him a while back. Is like, when you take on a new client, are you working them properly from the start? I said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, how you begin the relationship will determine how the relationship goes. So on that, when I sign up a new listing, and I'm sitting at the table with a seller, am I setting them up for future referrals by asking for the referrals at the table? And so the prospecting gives me this opportunity to meet new people. And then every time I'm going through a transaction with them, I've got 6 opportunities, 5 to 6 opportunities to ask for referrals.
And how long did that take for you to implement to even be comfortable enough to sit down at a listing appointment and ask for a referral?
I would say I probably adopted that right away.
Okay.
Now, I'll be the first to admit I didn't adopt working my database foolishly for a very long time. So I joined Mike Ferry probably in 2010, and it probably wasn't until 2016, 2017 that I was finally like, hey, this is far more profitable than just prospecting. But I think you've got to do both. I think there's no way around it.
Of course, that you have to naturally build your database and naturally build your sphere at the same time.
Yeah.
So we and you know, Zach, we talk about distractions business wise. We got that out of the way, so we have an idea of like how you are able to say no to things, and so you can say yes to things. But from what I understand, you're a family man. You
Yes,
have
sir.
a human being on the way, from what I understand.
So we actually just gave birth to a beautiful baby girl just 4 weeks ago.
Oh,
So we've got a
yes, right.
2-year-old and a
That's
one
right.
month old,
That's
or
right.
soon to be 1 month old. So yeah, man, family. So you asked about core and philosophies and everything. It's like for me, God, family, business.
Mhm.
And I think I interrupted whatever your
Yeah,
question
no,
was
I
going to be. I'm
mean,
sorry.
no, that's great. So, I mean, but based on that, right? But because the family is right there, it is so important for you as your obviously number two or really number one in your life, your current life, is that then how do you, set time apart to spend time with them, right? To be there for your kids and everything. Like, because we get a lot of questions like that in our phone warrior group. It's like, hey, Dean, like I'm like you, I have, kids, but I don't know how to like time manage this and all this. And I'm like, well, let's ask some people that are still doing things at a high level, but still seem to have a pretty good, marriage and a pretty good life. What does that look like for you?
That was something I had to learn over time, being a newer dad. But what I've learned is, and I've shared this with the agents on my team because one of them's got a couple kids too, and I said you have to set the proper expectation with the family, right? It's like I'm a dad before I'm a real estate agent, through and through. And if you guys have kids, you can appreciate that. It's like I would give up the business, I would give all this up for my kids. There's no question. However, if we want to have this lifestyle, if we want to do the things that we want to do, then I've got to set time aside, even if it's some evening prospecting or lead follow up. A lot of times I'll have that conversation with the family. Like we'll go have dinner, and then at dinner I'll have this conversation. My wife Laura's also MFO. I'll say, listen, I've got to get back on the phone as soon as we're done dinner. It might take 10 to 15 minutes, but I've got to call through my 3 hot somebodies, my leads, somebody that's going to set an appointment. But I think it's setting the proper planning and setting the proper plan and expectations with the family makes it so much easier.
Absolutely. And I do have a question though about early on what you said about your schedule, about role playing and your practice. Why do you feel like your caliber, you're doing tons of transactions a year, year after year? Why do you feel like that you still need to do it? Don't you know everything?
Well, skills are I mean, prospecting, all of this is all a diminishable skill. So the less I do it, the worse my skill gets. So look, there's an evolution of practice that probably everybody's going to go through over time. It used to be I had to go through, and you might see I've got the script sitting here on the my desk. And at one point was, let's just repeat the same thing over. When do you plan on interviewing the right agent for the job of selling your home? Say that 10 times, put my script down and do it that way. Now it's more situational. So Dean, you and I might be role playing and say, you know what, gosh, what are we hearing right now that needs to be worked on? Well, who hasn't heard the complaints about, well, the interest rates are too high. I've got this 2.5% interest rate and I've got now it's 6.5. Why would I ever consider moving? So it may be less about the individual script and more about situational awareness. Maybe it's what's my database script for in the first quarter. And even more specifically, it's a month-to-month basis. So I may have a new script or a thing of value that I'm doing in February that I didn't do in January, and something different completely in March than I did in February. So there's always something new that we're working on. It's like, as skilled as I am, and I've got a good foundation for this, there's always something. I'm not at mastery yet, right? But my goal every day, and I probably have it written somewhere on a card here, is that my goal is mastery.
Yeah.
Right. And mastery to me is not, it's so many levels deep. It's like, tonality, you think about tonality, body language, the words you say, everything has a different level of mastery. So everybody that's new on the script, their first thing is the words, right? And it takes a certain level of time to understand the words. Then it gets a certain level of time to get the right inflection points, the right downswings, the right upswings at certain points, right?
Mhm.
And then your body language. So you're always practicing different things. And maybe I'm a slow learner to answer your question, to make that like a real good package. But it's like green and growing. And the moment I let the foot off the pedal, I don't need to practice 3 hours anymore. But if I let the foot off the pedal, the weeds take over the garden.
That's right. You're not running marathons anymore in the practice game, but you're at least putting in the maintenance work necessary for you to continue to be strong, fit salesperson at the highest level.
Correct. That's it.
So on that, I'm well, this is interesting because where I'm seeing this go for you is, let me tell the group, if you don't mind, how many listings do you have currently right now?
I've got 11 active listings.
How many do you have coming soon?
20.
20.
20 coming soon listings.
So I just want to make a distinction and connect the dots with what you just said to everyone in the audience, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You just said, I am not at mastery yet, and you have 20 pending listings coming to market with 11 active. Guys, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you never arrive. What is your, like, do you ever feel like you've arrived in this business?
No. I mean, look, I used to think that, gosh, once I hit a certain level, there's not going to be the fear. There's not going to be that stress. It's going to get easy. Life's going to just be this. Set it on cruise control and we're good. And it's just like the Biggie song back in the day, more money, more problems, right? More deals, more problems. Because you're always dealing at stuff at such a higher level. It's like, all right, so when I first started in the business, I started taking listings. Maybe I took 20 for a year. It's like, well, my rejection is at this level here that I'm facing on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. All right, now I'm taking 100. So I'm dealing with more headache, more rejection at a much higher level. But now I've got higher levels of responsibility because we've got staff, we've got agents, we've got more people counting on us. It just gets tougher, but your ability to handle it gets better, right? And that's why you have to continue to improve, because it's like you could go work out, and you guys bench press, right? I'm sure from time to time. It's like, okay, if I were to sit down on the bench and do reps of 135, that might be very tough today. But in 6 months of working at 135, it's not tough anymore. But if I go to 165 or 185, it's heavier and it's just as hard. But I'm getting stronger and I can take on more. It's the same level of pain I experience at 135 as I did at 185. I'm just better equipped for it. But I want to go back to something, and I have a belief system here. When it comes to the numbers, sound great. 20 coming soon listings, 11 actives, however many pendings we've got at this point. But going back to your point, and it's a Mike Ferry thing, right? Remaining unattached to the outcome. I take it a little bit further. I'm like, I have nothing until I've got something.
Okay.
How much will you pay me for those 20 coming soon listings?
Yeah.
How much will you pay me for those active listings? Not referral fees, but how much will you write me a check for today for my pending deals? Because you don't know what could happen to those 20 coming soon listings. I could get a call today and someone just say, hey, Zach, I know we signed a contract, but I've decided not to sell. Or a snowstorm can blow through, and we're all in the Northeast here, so you can appreciate this. Pipes freeze. Well, what if I've got 5 listings that just had their pipes burst in their basement and now their house is flooded and they're not going to sell for 6 months to a year?
Yeah.
And I don't mean to go dark on this, but my philosophy is always more. Even though I've got the 20, even though I've got the 11, I haven't reached, there's no mountaintop. The more coming soon listings I have, the more listings come to the market. The more listings that come to the market, the more pendings I get. The more pendings I have, the more closings I get. But I've got nothing until I get a paycheck. So you can't let the foot off the pedal to make that is where I was going with that.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's fantastic for everyone to hear. What is your environment like now?
So I work from home. So we have an in-law suite attached to our house. This is where I currently am right now. So nobody else is in here. It's just me. I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't get interrupted.
What is your what I mean more specifically is like, what was your, I guess, let's go even deeper on that. What was your environment coming up as you were coming up to becoming more seasoned, more professional, everything else? And why did you decide to be where you're at now, as opposed to an office, as opposed to getting your own space, as opposed to, having maybe some people around you? Why not have, that's what I mean by that. you know?
Okay, so that's a great question.
Yeah.
So it's been an evolution. So I, for a long time, was a firm believer of I've got to be at the office. So when I first started in real estate, I was at the office at 6:45 every morning, Monday through Friday, and then at 8 o'clock on Saturdays. I never missed a Saturday either. And then that was for, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 years until COVID happened. And then they shut down the country. And when they shut down the country and they said, well, you can't come to the office anymore, I said, I was pissed. I was like, no, 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 you don't understand. I go to the office to prospect. This is what I do. Well, we take all my stuff home, and then 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or whatever they say you can go back to the office. I'm like, I actually enjoy being home. I've got less interruptions, less distractions. I'm wasting less time between commute time if I've got to go get a coffee and plus I get to see my wife, right? I can go see her on a quick break and they don't interrupt. So once they said you can go back to the office, I never really wanted to go back, mainly because I can control this environment better than I can any other environment. If I go to the office, well, I can't reasonably, or I can attempt to have people not interrupt me at the office.
Mm.
I can attempt to, I've prospected in the room with other agents. Well, when you're in the room with other agents, you've got to make sure your mindset is stronger than the combined negativity of everybody in the room. So if you're prospecting with the wrong people, they're going to bring you down as well. So I just felt like being alone, there's less distractions.
Now,
And
how do you?
Nice.
I was a coach for a little while, so my nature is like, if I hear you screwing up, I'm going to want to help you.
Okay. So
Right. And so
interesting.
part of it is that it's like my
Yes.
desire to help you improve and get better. I'm going to start coaching you. Oh, and then someone just answered the phone. And so that's why I like just being alone.
Cool. Nice.
That is by itself, a lot of people don't understand the power of just having your door closed and the zero distractions. Because like you said, you're talking, you're coaching, or you actually just listen to somebody else and that person picks up and it's been 15 minutes where not one person picked up, and then you just lost a $20,000 check because you were not ready and prepared, or even worse, you stumbled on exactly what you're saying, and now that prospect believes that you're not competent enough to even have a conversation with them anymore. And guess what happens? They hang up the phone on you, and maybe you call back at a later date, but the chances are of that pickup is very low. So,
Well, it's a good point because if you think about level of distraction, all right, our average commission check, let's just say, is 15,000. If I'm distracted by you, somebody else in the room, and somebody picks up the phone while I'm ringing, the amount of time you get anymore from somebody picking up to a good conversation, you have less time than you probably have ever had, right? To make a good impression. And I mean, like, just matching them with tonality and what they're saying.
Right.
So if I'm distracted and I'm like, I'm being reactionary, well, I'm going to lose those checks every single time. So it pays to not be distracted, because the moment someone picks up, I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm in like the athletic stance. I'm ready. That fly ball's coming. I'm ready. I'm not looking at a fan in the stands and then the fly ball goes over my head.
So like new agents right now, if someone came to you, Zach, please give me some advice. I don't know what, I'm new. You're first. We have a lot of new agents in our group, in our network and everything right now for Phone Warriors. What are you telling those agents right now to do if they were to come to you?
Yeah. So let's just say one of these, I'm coaching them or they join my team. We're going to set up their environment the right way. We talked about that. You asked that question. So we're going to make sure that if they're prospecting, we've figured out what their prospecting station is. Is it free of distraction? What are they listening to in preparation for their day? But really, if we just keep it simple, a good, strong practice schedule. If you're not doing any transactions, you're brand new, you have nothing else to do, right? There's no excuse for not being able to put in the time. So I would say probably 2 to 3 hours of practice throughout the day. I would break up my prospecting stretches with mindset stuff and practice stuff. So whether it be, you should be at the office 7 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's got a different schedule. If you're a parent, you might be 8 o'clock and then start at 9. That's fine. But I would probably build in an hour of preparation first thing in the morning, something to get myself mentally ready, something to practice with so that I'm ready to go, just like any professional sports player would be when they're getting ready for a big game. I would do stretches of time in which they're prospecting. 100% have to I don't care if it's an expired, I don't care if it's a for sale by owner, database, the people they know introducing themselves. Any one of those things is going to be beneficial. But then I'd probably just do it little segments, little bits of time. So if I've got 12 hours, well, I've got 4 3-hour blocks of time. What am I doing in those stretches? It's not going to be just 12 hours of prospecting. I think it's not worthwhile.
So do you now when you say practice for 2 to 3 hours, then are you what did you do in order for you to become so proficient over the phone?
So I started with chanting.
Okay.
So I would take the expired script. I would look at it and I would say, okay, let me read the first line 10 times in a row while looking at the script. And I'd put it down. And I'd say, hi, this is Zach. I'm a local real estate agent. I'm sure you figured out your home came up on our computer as an expired listing. Hi, this is Zach. I'm looking for, and like I would go through that 10 times in a row. If I didn't mess up, I'm going to line number 2. I'm sure, when do you plan on interviewing the right agent for the job of selling your home? When do you plan on interviewing the right agent for the job of selling your home? When do you plan on interviewing the right agent for the job of selling your home? When I've done that 10 times, I put it down. Then I'm going to start at the beginning. Hi, I'm looking for blank. Hi, blank. This is Zach. I'm a local real estate agent. I'm sure you figured out your home came up on and I'm going to do that 10 times without messing up. If I mess up, my counter starts over. Once I've done it perfectly, so I do line number 1, number 2 perfectly 10 times each without looking, I'll take my script back over. I'll go to the next one. If you sold this home, where would you go next? If you sold this home, where would you go next? If you sold this home, where would you go next? It's all about repetition. When you're practicing, let's just say you're playing sports. Do you get better playing pickup basketball?
Or professional with a coach.
Well, there's different levels, right? It's like if I want to get better as a basketball player and I want to shoot free throws, I might go to the gym and pick up the basketball and shoot 800 free throws in a row. I don't care how many makes, how many misses, right? 800. That's a drill. Then there's going to be pickup games I can play, right? That's kind of your role play. And then there's the big game is when I'm actually doing it, when I'm in the game or when I'm practicing. So there's the chanting, which we just did. Then there's the role play. And then there's that, what you actually do. But I think that chanting is a big thing to get that repetition into your brain. The more I say it, the more it's going to be locked in.
That's huge.
This chanting, what comes to my mind is affirmations. Do you believe in affirmations?
Sure do.
Do you do affirmations?
Every day, 9 o'clock, we've got a group together. Everybody gets on at 9 o'clock and I lead a group in 9 o'clock affirmations.
Nice.
Over Zoom or Google Meet or whatever it is. But yeah, I avoided it for a long time. But again, as you are growing your business, you probably don't have the mindset. You need it, right? But then as you're growing the business and you're doing more and more, since you're facing more and more rejection and tougher situations, you probably need it even more.
That's very valuable. Now, do you also, when you do affirmations, are you including your goals in that? Or these are things that you're, affirming out there that you want to accomplish in the present tense, obviously for the future?
Yes, I mean, I change them up all the time, but I'll throw in like I set 2 or more listings every single day or something better.
I like that, man.
Right, so I'll throw in the production goals in there. Usually it's a lot more mental, but I will throw in like my database calls me daily with referrals, something like that. So it varies.
So let me ask you this question then. Now, does your health matter?
It's probably up there with breathing.
Okay. Well, like your health, like in terms of you being healthy, you being out there, are you working out? What is your like, your like, I would say cardio, but the better word would be like, what is your daily routine around that if you do have one?
Yeah, I'd love to say it's daily, right? But with 2 small kids, it's when I can. No,
Yes.
But so I'll give you an example. When I started in 2012, 11, whatever it was, I weighed 50 pounds less than I do today, 40 pounds less than I do today. I had a lot more hair and I had less wrinkles. So I was a younger guy. And I would go on a listing appointment and people say, hey, how old are you? Right? I always get that question. And then finally, one of my coaches said, listen, you're not naturally tall. You are not naturally big. You're a skinny guy. So you're going to have less authority. So there's different ways we can demonstrate authority. It's the tone of our voice, our handshakes, the way we're dressed, right? Are we wearing suit and ties? Are we wearing, a tank top? One of the things that one of my coaches had suggested is you need to figure out a way to have authority. And I was like, well, I can't naturally grow. I'm done with that. Let me get to the gym. So I gained like 30, 40 pounds of muscle so that when I went to appointments, nobody questioned my age anymore. And a byproduct of that is I got addicted to working out. So for a long time, 5-6 days a week, every morning before I would start my day. And now it's probably 3-4 days a week. But whenever I work out, to go back to your original question, the clarity of mind, I even texted that to my wife yesterday because I had a good workout before I hopped on the phones. And I said, my gosh, every time I work out before I start, the mental clarity is significantly better. You
Mm.
kind of work through a little bit of fog. There's probably that serotonin, whatever the chemical release when you work out is. But yes,
Dopamine, maybe. Yeah.
dopamine maybe. I know there's a good chemical release.
The endorphins are flowing.
Endorphins. Thank
Yes,
you
yes, yes.
for those more. Spending a lot of my time dedicated to building a team, only to realize I was losing a lot of money, right? Because my production suffered as a result. And a lot of the agents, when we got on the call, I told you that we had taken our agent count down from 7 down to, I think there's 4 of us total including my wife and I. So we only have 2 agents now. But anybody that you hire should be propelling your business forward, not keeping it anchored to where it is. You want everybody pulling in the same direction. So culturally speaking, it's like I can appreciate we've all heard this: hire slow, fire fast. Nobody is required to work with us. We want you to work with us if you're a good fit, but you're not required to. Now, we're going to have a higher level of standard because of it. And when we raise that bar and we say, okay, we're going to have a higher level of standard, one of 2 things is going to happen. Either they're going to meet the bar and raise their standard, or they're going to leave the team, which is why we have 3 less agents on the team this year.
How long do you give these agents before you decide or they decide that it's not working out or it is going to work out?
Are you guys familiar with what a 30, 60, 90 is?
Yes.
Go ahead, explain it.
Okay, so it's a business thing that essentially what you're doing is setting a barometer when someone comes to work with you. They've got a 30-day plan, a 60-day plan, and 90-day plan. And what we do is we review it with every agent as they're coming onto the team. And we say, all right, here's your list of things that you have to do to stay as part of the team. There's no yellow light here. It's red light, green light. It's pass fail. So if you hit, and it's going to be, you got to read this book, you've got to attend a Mike Ferry event, or it may be some educational stuff, some activity stuff. Maybe it's add people to your database. Everybody's got to have called through their database in the first 90 days. There's different metrics that they have to meet in order to stay as part of the standard. And at the end of the 90 days, if you haven't hit not only the activity basis, but the production basis, then we've already agreed mutually between us that this is not going to be a partnership that works out.
Nice.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So minimum standard, 2 deals per month. The first 2 years, and then you have to do 3 deals a month from there.
Gotcha. But what you're doing is you're attracting racehorses, it sounds like, that you, just like yourself, that you built up, that you want us alongside you, like you said, engines that are just propelling everything forward. And I think that's a fantastic plan. So I'm ready, Rich, if you don't mind, to ask my final question. Picture yourself as a 22-year-old kid. Again, you picture yourself as when you were 22, 23. Okay. You're coming up, you decide, okay, this is like what I'm doing. What you know now, you have a time machine, you're going back to yourself. What are you telling yourself back then?
I wish I had that time machine, because I was in the business at 22. First thing is first, and you maybe have heard me say this, and I kind of hinted towards this to begin with, is the most profitable business decision you can make is work your database and give good quality customer service. That's number 1. Number 2, since we already hit on number 1, number 2, since this is Phone Warriors podcast, I would say we're looking for quality quantity.
Okay.
And I'll expand upon that a little bit.
What does that mean?
Okay. We've all been around agents that have said, gosh, I made 50 contacts today. I made 100 contacts today. We say, well, that's a great number. How many appointments did you schedule? Well, none. Okay. Well, there's value there, but what is the objective to this whole prospecting thing? What is our goal? What are we looking for? Setting appointment, right?
Yeah.
All right. So the focus is appointments are always senior to contacts. And I want to take that one step further. I don't care how many appointments you set, right? I don't want you to have the mentality that, oh my gosh, and I set 7 appointments today. Well, first off, I'd say congratulations because you convinced enough people to meet with you, which means your sales skills are up here. But I want to ask you a question. Are these good appointments? Or are we celebrating and we want recognition for something that we're not going to get paid for?
Ooh, I like that.
Right?
That don't sell.
Is what does it matter how many listings you've taken? What does it matter how many your appointments are? Who cares how many contacts you're making? The question results in we're working to make money. So the end result is how many deals are you converting? How many appointments are you setting that are good quality appointments that are worthwhile? How many listings are you taking that are you're going to sell? So I know this is probably a longer answer that you wanted, but
this is fantastic.
at 22, I kept making the mistake saying, well, gosh, I'm making 50 contacts a day. I deserve to have these deals. I deserve it. I'm practicing more than everybody. I'm working more than everybody. I'm talking to more people than everybody. But the reality is that's not what the market pays you for. The market pays us, and we've heard this, I'm not making this up, pays us for the value that we provide. So when you're prospecting, it's all about providing value. Well, how do you provide value? Well, when I'm going through the script, am I asking questions and listening? Really listening, not just listening to, as we've heard, to respond, but listening to truly understand. And I think that's where a lot of people miss the boat. It's who cares? No, there's no value. It's like Tony Smith said to me once. He said, Zach, my ultimate goal, 200 transactions, 200 contacts for the year. Right? That's ultimate efficiency.
It is.
And
yes.
that's what I would say is like nobody cares. It's not that impressive. Everybody talks about it's how much money did you make, how many deals did you close? Nothing else really matters.
True. And
I
a
love
lot
that.
of people rush the conversations to hit the contact goal.
Yeah.
Listen and not because you had a slight yes. That no was a little softer than the first no was part of that. There's a breakthrough there. And you missed it because you're like, oh, I'm only at 20 contacts. I got 30 more to go in 1 hour.
Yeah, you'll never hear me celebrate the number of contacts that are made. In fact, it's the conversation I never have with anybody. If you're a newer agent, it is because you've got to get into the habit of doing it. Don't mistake that, right?
Yeah.
But it's not, it's like, you don't get paid for contacts. It's a contact sport, as we've all heard, but you don't get paid for contacts. Sorry for the long-winded answer. But
that's that was one of the one of our better answers that we have received. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Awesome. I saved the best for last.
Yeah, 100%. So where is the best way for people to find you, reach out to you for referrals?
Yeah, I mean, probably my cell phone number is probably the best. Cell phone is 215-544-2658. And you can reach out if you have questions or whatever, but referrals are always preferred. Anything, and just you think Pennsylvania, reach out to me. Cool. Even if it's on the other side of the state, I'll get you connected with the right people, but definitely reach out.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Zach. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, same here. Thanks so much for having me on. Hopefully everybody gets some good value out of this. Let's get some deals.